I told you guys on the video we're introducing this that Breeze is doing something that I don't think anybody else is doing. In my 20 years, I haven't seen it, Matt. If somebody else out there is doing it, I don't know about it. I don't want to know about it. But Matt and them with Breeze together a platform that is making it easier to sell disability, critical illness insurance, and something that I a lot more in our industry. I think honestly, because think about this, guys, if you're 25 years old, your odds of becoming disabled and unable to work are much higher of dying in the next 10 years, but yet we saw a lot of 10-year terms, right? So this is a great product for us. This is a great opportunity. Matt, I've made you your co-host there so you can share your screen, but take it away, man. And if you guys would, please mute your microphones. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. So it's all yours, Matt.
All right. Well, thank you, Dallas, and the whole team at Secure. So yes, exactly what Dallas said. What Breeze is doing is we are making the entire process of applying for and quoting disability insurance a lot easier than it ever has been in the past. So it's really as simple as that. I try not to over explain it. Give you a little bit of background on Breeze. We have been in the disability marketplace for about 2.5 years now. We started out as a direct-to-consumer platform. We rolled out our agent distribution in October. So we've been direct-to-consumer for a little over 2.5 years now. Agent portal and agent distribution has been available since October. So I will go ahead and share my screen and show you guys what that looks like. Here. Okay, why? Okay, well, it's showing let's get in here. All right. Okay, so what you guys are looking at right now is the agent portal. So the agent portal is where you're going to be able to track all of your applications. That is going to be DI or CI, like Dallas mentioned earlier. Right now, we have a long-term DI policy, we have a critical illness policy, and then we are also getting a short-term disability insurance policy coming this summer. So you can see over here on the side, it has the status of those applications, whether they're approved, they've been submitted. Interview basically means that they have started an application, but they are not finished with that application. You notice that it says continue application right here. As the agent, you have the ability to jump right into the application where they left off. But to run a quote, it's really as simple as just clicking up here in the right-hand corner. You'll notice that it says a surety right now. A surety is our live carrier. We are right now in the process of building Principal's long-term DI product into our platform. So we are very, very hopeful that that is going to be done by the end of April. So we're looking at only about 2 weeks, and then we'll have 2 different DI policies on here. The critical illness will just be with the surety. But to run a quote, when you click run a quote, it's going to take you to this screen. We don't need any personal information to be able to run a quote. All we need to know is, where they live, how old they are, male or female, what their annual income is, occupation. So we are able to work with pretty much any occupation. We do everything from construction workers and laborers and manual labor all the way up to doctors, dentists, and nurses. So when they put in that information, it's going to immediately run them a quote. So we have several riders available to select from. It's going to automatically default to the max benefit amount based on their age and occupation and income. But you can very easily change that. Let's say they don't need the full $5,000. They're just looking for something to cover bills and mortgage payment and stuff like that. They can change the benefit amount. We go up to age 67 as far as benefit periods, depending on OCC class. And then we also have several different elimination periods. So 30, 60, 90, 180 days in 1 year. 90 days is very typical for a long-term disability policy. If you get towards the 30 days, it starts to get a little expensive. Get up towards a year, that's quite a long elimination period. So you usually see 90 days as the elimination period. But same thing, when you click on an occupation or own occupation rider, residual death benefit rider, or residual disability benefit rider, it's just going to recalculate that price each time. So you can keep adding as many as you want. If you aren't sure what a rider is, you can click the little question mark and it'll give you a description of what that rider does. And at this point, you have two options. So you can send this quote by email, put in the client's name, their email. It'll come in a nice formatted email saying, Secure Insurance Group has put together this disability insurance quote for you. Click here to apply now. There will be a button that says apply now. That will take them into the application portion where it starts collecting personal information and having them answer lifestyle and health questions. Or you can click start application and you can start running through that application with them from start to finish. You'll notice here that the first set of questions is what we call our knockout questions. So if they have to answer yes to any of these questions, they're not going to qualify for DI. The reason we ask these right at the beginning is, number one, we haven't collected any personal information yet, so it's not going to go on any report that they were declined for DI. But also client experience, we don't want them to have to go through, the entire application process and find out that they would have been declined anyway. Now, when I say the entire application process, I had an application completed last week in 9 minutes. So I typically say it can be done in as little as 10 minutes. Now, with a grain of salt, that is a client who's young, healthy, doesn't have any sort of medical issues. They're answering no to all the questions because they haven't had any of those issues. But if they do have to answer yes, it's basically each question is just going to pop up a box and ask for a little bit more information. The only thing that's going to automatically knock them out is if they have to answer yes to any of these first set of 6 questions. So the second part, I'm going to go ahead and share my other screen here that you get when you sign up with Breeze, is what we call our agent portal or our consumer facing portal. So I want to make sure that you guys are seeing the screen I'm seeing here. Okay, so on the consumer facing site, this is where clients can 100% self-service, get a quote and complete an application all on their own. So you have a personalized web page. We can do your name, we can do your agency's name, we can put a little logo on here, whatever works best for you, whatever you'd like to see, we can customize that for you. When they come to this link, it's going to show them, what's available. You can see here the short-term DI is coming soon. But let's say, for example, they want to get a quote on long-term DI. The only difference that you're going to see is that it's going to ask one question at a time. The reason for that is we want to keep it as clean as we possibly can. We don't want too many questions to, scare the client, make them feel like this is too much. But again, we're not going to ask for any sort of personal information for them to just be able to get a quote. So once they go through and answer those questions, it's going to take them to a recommended options page. So we're going to just show a recommended option is going to be a 5-year benefit with a 90-day waiting period. It's going to give them a low cost option, a mid-tier option, and a max amount of benefits that they qualify for. You'll notice here that this says requires medical exam. We go up to $5,000 a month in monthly benefit with no medical exam required. Let's see if they click here, more coverage options. They can drag that. Once they go below 5,000, it's going to make that requires medical exam disappear. But all the same things are going to be available. They can still do to age 65. They can still change their waiting period. Now, if they click on a question mark, they want to know what the ONOC rider is. It's going to pop up a big box and say, hey, here's exactly what the own occupation rider does. But there's not going to be any price change or change of questions or anything that's available on the agent portal or consumer portal. It's all the same. It's just going to be the way it's presented. So when they're ready to apply, again, it's going to take them into the screen. The first screen is going to be those knockout questions. Second's going to be our honesty pledge, basically saying, hey, tell the truth. It doesn't help if you don't. And this is going to be the first time that we ask them for any sort of personal information. Now, at this point, this is also where it's going to populate in your agent portal that an application has been started. So I'm going to enter in this information real quick. And I do see that we have a question in the chat box. So I'm going to get to that pretty quick here. Just let me get this information entered in here. If you notice why I'm typing in Nebraska, it's because we are based in Omaha, Nebraska. So that's why I am using Nebraska as my location. So for example, right here, if I click, do you have other current disability insurance in force? It's going to take me to another question. So basically, it's just going to lead that client down a different path. If you go, no, I don't, it's going to take them right past that. So they're not going to have those additional questions to answer. All right, I want to go to the chat real quick here. So first question, what does the medical exam entail? So the medical exam is going to be like a paramed exam, typical for if you had to do the same thing as if you had to do it for a life insurance policy. Based on, higher benefit amount requests. So, we go up to $20,000 a month in the in monthly benefits. Sometimes based on age, occupation, and amount that they're requesting a monthly benefit, there might be additional things required, like an EKG. That's pretty rare. Usually the medical exam is just going to be a normal paramed. Who pays for the medical exam? Good question. The carrier pays for the medical exam if they're requesting that. Do we need our health license to offer the products? Yes, you do need a health license. Disability and critical illness insurance fall under a health license. And is age 65 the max benefit period? We go out to age 67 as well. That is our max is age 67. Now, that is going to be based on age and occupation. So if they are in a 1A occupation class or the highest rated, most dangerous OC class, they're not going to have age 65 or age 67 available. That's just due to their occupation being more dangerous, but it will go up to a 5-year benefit. But if they're in 3A, 4A, they can get out to age 67. Good questions. So now that we've entered in our personal information, it's going to hop into the lifestyle questions. It's basically asking, do you do anything dangerous outside of what your job is? So things like, government employees typically have disability plans. So that's not saying that a government employee can't get an individual DI plan. It's just usually there's going to be some additional restrictions because of how those government DI plans work. Same with military. One question I do get asked is, do pilots qualify? Pilots are very hard to underwrite for disability insurance. There's some certain companies out there that will write them, but most DI carriers, pilots are not eligible. So here's where, it's asking, what do you do? Things like bungee jumping, hot air ballooning. You might have an accountant who's a professional bungee jumper on the side. Doesn't mean they can't get disability insurance, but it might be issued with the saying that, you know, if they get hurt bungee jumping, it's not going to cover that incident, but anything else it will still cover. Let's see a couple more questions coming in. So this commercial or private pilots, I don't really, I'm not an actuary. I don't know why they feel that way about pilots. But yeah, pilots just in general we don't cover pilots for DI. So like here, do you plan to live or travel outside the United States? My wife and I are going to Mexico for our anniversary this summer. That's not the same as, you know, going on a mission trip to Haiti for 6 months. So if you do answer yes, it's just going to ask, you know, where are you going? How long are you going to be there? What do you plan to do there? Every question that you have to answer yes to, it's just going to pop up another question, just ask for some more detail. So one thing I want to, excuse me, one thing I want to point out here is that this is in the past 10 years. I've had questions, you know, like, is that a hard and fast date? That is a hard and fast date. So as long as it's more than 10 years ago, they don't have to, you know, answer anything before that. So now that we're through the lifestyle questions, it's going to take you on to the health questions. These are going to be pretty similar to what you would see on any sort of life or DI. You know, have you had any issues? If you had, you know, what are they? How have they been taken care of? Diabetes is one that I get asked about a lot. As long as they haven't changed their meds or been diagnosed in the last year, they can still get disability insurance. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but on DI, we do write ages 18 to 60. I would say the sweet spot for most of our applicants is anywhere in the 28 to 49, 50 range. When you get over age 50, there's some additional requirements. The non-med benefit is not $5,000 anymore. That drops down to $2,000. So it's just the policy is a little bit more expensive. They got to jump through a few more hoops once they get over age 50. Not to say they can't get DI. It's just, you know, the process is going to be a little bit longer. If you'll notice up here, there's this little yellow bar basically telling them their progress, how much longer they have to go. I like that because, you know, sometimes it can be like, oh gosh, I'm answering all these questions. How many more do I have? At least it's giving them an idea of how many more they do have. So we do have instant approval on DI. That's going to be lower benefit amounts. So under 4,000 monthly benefit, somebody who's in a high OC class and usually pretty young, but we can get instant approval on DI, which means at the end of the application, they can pay and have an enforced policy at the end. So now that the application is done, it's analyzing the answers. It's going to give some fun facts while they're waiting for those answers to be completed. Now it's going to say, hey, your application is on the path to approval. It is going to ask for a card number. There's two reasons for this. One, it is verifying who the person applying for the policy is who they say they are. And also they can use this card to pay their premiums. So at policy approval, they can choose to use the card that they put on the application, or they can set up a bank draft, however they'd like to pay for it. These are the cards that are accepted. It's charging $0 at this moment because I did over 4,000 of benefits. So this is not going to be an instant approval one. So it's going to take me into the DocuSign. No wet signatures required. It's all DocuSign. The policy is e-delivered once approved. The client can request a paper copy if they'd like, but it is going to be e-delivered. So are the benefit amounts of 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 monthly benefits? Yes, they are monthly benefits. So we can completely customize the monthly benefits. It doesn't have to be an even, you can do 1,750 if you'd like. But yes, those are monthly benefits paid out. So when they're ready to sign, it's going to have them DocuSign all the portions on the app. So we are finished signing. For this particular policy, because of the benefit amount, it is going to ask for income verification. Once that pops up, it's going to say, hey, if you're a W-2 employee, you can upload your last 2 pay stubs right here. Or if you're a 1099 contractor or business owner that is, paid as a 1099 contractor, you can use your tax returns. Oh, good. So it actually did not ask me for the income verification on this one, which is nice. But yes, so at some benefit amounts, it will ask for income verification. Usually, again, those are going to be your higher benefits. So, so you start getting $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 a month in benefits. The reason for that is because usually the client is, if they're getting that benefit amount, it's because they've said they have a pretty high income. So the carrier is going to need to verify that income. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up now. And we had some questions in the chat box. Dallas, I don't know if you want to open it up for live questions or how you'd like to handle that. Did we lose Dallas?
Sorry, no, I'm here.
Oh,
Say
no,
that
you're
again.
fine.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's the end of the application. So at this point, the client's going to get an email saying, hey, your documents have been sent on to the carrier. It's going to take 2 to 3 days. We're going to review, make sure everything looks good. Most of the time, what's going to happen if there is anything additional needed, it's because something the client said on the electronic application is not matching up to a report that was pulled in the background. So that's going to be like the MIB report, the prescription report, criminal history, driving record. So if something doesn't match up, like they said, hey, I don't have diabetes, but they're taking medicine for diabetes, the carrier might request a telephone interview. The really nice thing about Breeze is we're handling all that case management for you. So our system is going to self-generate notifications to them. It's going to send them a text message saying, hey, the carrier has requested a short telephone interview. You can call this number or you can click here to schedule. So we're going to help you get that policy to approval. So you working with the carrier and the underwriters, we take that off your plate. So yeah, Dallas, I was going to say, do you want to open it up for live questions or how did you want? Oh, I have another question here. They have to include the years needed to be covered. Let's say 5 years, but only use 6 months, but they have 4.5 left over. Great question. So yes, this is not total disability. This is an individual DI policy. So they can go on and off this. They only use 6 months. That doesn't mean that they've used up their time. It just means that they still have DI benefits as long as they keep paying premiums on that policy.
Yeah, that doesn't have all.
One question I have, Matt, so let's say, I get a policy and at the time I'm making $100,000. I pay for my policy for 3, 4, 5 years. And then at time of claim, I have a disability. And at time of claim, my income has changed, whether it went up or whether it went, let's say for, easy math, let's say my income is actually down to 80,000. At time of claim, are they going to give me 60% of whatever my income is right now?
No. So the policy is issued at your current income. The benefit is not going to change. Now, let's say flip side, your income, you're anticipating your income is going to grow. There's 2 riders that you can use on that. The guaranteed insurability rider, which means at any point you can go back and say, hey, I would like to increase my benefit amount. I can now show that I'm making, instead of 100, I'm making 150. There's not going to be any additional underwriting required other than you're going to have to do income verification on that, showing that you are making more income. Now, obviously that's going to increase the premium, but it's going to be at the insured rate that you got when you initially got the policy. There's also an automatic benefit increase rider where that's kind of like an inflation rider. So after the first policy year, the client has the option to increase their benefit amount by 5%. So that's going to be covering like any sort of inflation. Now, like I said, on the downside, just because you're making 20,000 less, that is not going to change your monthly benefit amount because your policy was originally issued at your income. Unless you get rid of the policy and go back and say, hey, I'd like to get another policy, then obviously they're going to do it at the income that would be lower.
Right. Okay. All right. Great stuff. Any other questions, guys? I know, here we go. Is the document sent to them, DocSign sent to them automatically via email if we're doing telesales and not customer facing, I'm assuming is the last word there.
Yep. So if you are going through the application with the client, at the end, once it's completed, it's going to have you put in their email and you'll send the application to them by email for them to DocuSign.
Nice.
Good question.
Very nice. How many, by show of hands, how many people have ever sold a disability policy? I know I figured Larry, because Larry, we come from Mutual of Omaha, and Mutual of Omaha is well, they push a lot of disability. Guys, this is a great product. Let me do this. Let me give you guys a couple ideas. These are stuff passed along that we had at Mutual of Omaha. One disability policy I sold, the gentleman had a Corvette in the garage. And I asked him this, I said, what would happen if, I said, who's your insurance agent, or who's your insurance company for your Corvette? He said, State Farm. I said, what if you got a call tonight and said, listen, his name is Billy. I said, listen, Billy, something happened. We had a mix up electronically in the paperwork. Your Corvette is not covered for 24 hours. After 24 hours, your coverage will resume. He said, well, number one, I'd be finding a new insurance company. And he said, number two, I wouldn't touch it. I'd leave it either in the garage, it would not move. And I said, okay, what did you pay for that Corvette? And he said, about 60,000. And I said, well, here's the deal. You make 120 grand a year. You're walking around out there with no coverage whatsoever protecting that income, right? You got to bring value to them. Show them. I always ask people, what is your biggest asset? Right? If I were to ask you, what is your biggest asset? A lot of people say, well, my home is. Well, unless your home's paid off, it's really not an asset, it's a liability. They'll say, my biggest asset is my bank account. Well, your bank account, if you stop putting it in, it's still going to keep coming out, right? That's not, it's an asset, but it's a depleting asset. Your biggest asset is your ability to earn an income, right? That is your biggest asset. So I always ask them this, what happens if you get sick or hurt and can't work? We overcomplicate disability way too much, right? There's 3 things you need to ask in order to know which disability policy to give them. Number one, how long can you live on your current income or on your current reserves that you have in your bank account, right? So if something happened today, bam, you're stuck on the couch, an illness or an injury, you're stuck on your couch. How long can you live? And they'll sit there, and most people, 78% of people in the United States will say till next week. Right? I go check to check every week. Then you say, okay, we need to have a short elimination period, right? The first thing you have to figure out is the elimination period. How long? You got a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, whatever. Then you need, what is your income? How much do you make? What if I could show you something that would give you 60% of that income, right? So the first thing they're going to say is, well, it's only 60%. What if I need more than that? What if I need more income? Well, that's when I like to throw in critical illness, because critical illness, then you double their chances. If it's an illness, they're going to get the disability, plus they're going to get the critical illness. Then the third question is, how long do you want this policy to pay out? Today, how long would you want it to pay out? And the obvious answer is going to be as long as it can, right? If you do that, you have just sold them a disability policy, because you've got them thinking about, okay, if I fall off the ladder painting the deck next week, what happens? So a lot of people too will say, well, I have it at work. Here's the deal. Here's the question then. Does that cover you if you get hurt at home? Because a lot of workplace disability only covers, like a workman's comp, only covers you if you're at work. So just to ask them, what happens if you get sick or hurt and can't work? In 2017, I was diagnosed with cancer. We had a critical illness policy with a surety, and man, my life, would I have made it without it? Absolutely. But was my life much, much easier with it? Absolutely. Because here's the thing. And my doctor even said, whenever I got diagnosed, my doctor, they pull you into a consultation room, right? And they talk to you about, here's what's going to happen. Here's how it's going to go, all this stuff, right? The doctor, one of the first questions he asked me was, how are your finances? And that really surprised me, because I thought, well, one, it's none of your business. He goes, look, I'm not trying to be nosy, but he said, here's the deal. Your chemo and radiation and all that stuff, it interacts with your attitude. It interacts with how positive you are. And if you're a person that is worried and constantly worried about everything, your chemo is going to actually react poorly, and you're going to get sicker. You're going to get sicker, more sick, whatever. Either way, it's going to happen, right? He told me then the number one reason people worry when they have cancer, he said, you'd think it'd be the cancer. It's their finances. They worry about, am I going to be able to work? Am I going to be able to take care of my family? And so then that reacts to their chemo. So he said, really, it is my business, right? So he asked me about that. I told him about my policy. He goes, man, he goes, I wish every person, he said, every person on the planet ought to have this. And then I sold him a critical illness policy. But so this is really something I believe in, guys. We do not push it enough. We push life insurance. We push all this other stuff. This is a great piece too, because everybody knows somebody that has got sick or hurt and is unable to work. Every person you've ever met knows somebody. You've seen the gas station jar you put the quarters in because Bob fell off a ladder and he can't go back to work and his family doesn't have anything to eat, right? So sorry, man, I'm hijacking your meeting here.
No, this is your meeting. And honestly, that was awesome. Those are all great points. And you're 100% right. And I noticed, earlier in the meeting, you brought up how there's a much higher chance of somebody being disabled in the next 20 years or next 10 years than dying. Right now, there's 25, this is from the Social Security disability information, 25% of Americans will have a disabling event that requires disability insurance before they retire. So that's a huge number, yet only 17% of Americans have a long-term disability insurance policy. So there's a massive number of Americans who are going to experience that disabling event, but there's a huge opportunity for you as the advisor, the agent, to help provide them with something and do it in a much easier way that takes, instant quote in 10 minutes. And that's what Breeze is trying to do, is just be able to provide that disability insurance to a lot of working Americans who honestly haven't had really an option before.
Now, this is something that we can throw over to social media, right? Throw up there, and guys, do that today. This is what you do. Well, when you get appointed, on there and just put that stat on there. Google Social Security disability and throw that stat up there, and then post the question. Here's one thing that we made a lot of money off of. Write this down, and I've got to write it down while I do it because I will mess it up. Write down the initials WPY WYGSOH. Okay. WPY WYGSOH. I had a district manager that was the leading disability salesman for Mutual of Omaha, right? He had this on his business card. And of course, people would always ask, what in the world does WPY WYGSOH stand for? Who pays you when you get sick or hurt? Who pays you when you get sick or hurt? Just put that up there on your website with the link, WPYWYGSOH. And of course, what are people going to do? They're either going to pass. Dallas needs to go back on his meds, right? And they're going to ask, what in the world is this? Did you hit the keyboard accidentally? Just start the conversation. We did have a couple questions. One, is this recorded? Yes, Ms. Jovi, this is recorded. We'll get this on our website next week. Two, are the benefits taxable?
Yeah, so these are policies paid with after-tax dollars, so the benefits are not taxable.
Yep. Good question. Any other questions? Anything I've missed, guys? All right. So if you want to get contracted, here's how you do it. We've started a new process. If you would like to get contracted, you need to reach out to your upline. If you have an upline, reach out to your upline. They are going to fill out a work order and send it over to contracts@secureig.com. If you do not have an upline, if you're under Brian Askins or you're an individual agent, send me an email, dallas.keithley@secureig.com, HLEY, and we will fill out a work order for you and get over to contracting done. So we'd love for you guys to be selling a lot of disability. Disability leads into other topics. So you're going to start talking about their health insurance, all that stuff. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal product. Let's see here. We got one more question, maybe. Oh, thank you. Very good information. Thank you, Marilee. So, all right, guys, what we're going to do too, we are going, sign us up. I like it, Stephen. I hate the following directions. No, I'm just kidding. So we are going to do a video here in the next week or so and have it up on our website, just the basics of disability, because I think this is something that of us don't know anything about. So we'll do a basics of disability policy or a video here in the next couple of weeks, have it on the website. Matt, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Is there a way, what's the best way if they want to get in contact with you? Can you put your email in the chat box or something like that?
Yep. I'll put my email and my cell in the chat box.
Awesome. All right. Everybody's already saying, there we go. M McNally@meetbreeze.com. So, all right, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to the Wednesday training. We will get you guys rolling. Let's start making some disability or writing some disability, and we will see you guys on Monday. Talk to y'all soon.
Thanks, everyone. Yep. Thanks, Dallas. Thank you, everyone.